Yeah, so why we celebrate this particular day as in your computer security day? So what happens so far is there are some researchers in Karnal University. They were working on a basic version of internet that is called ARPANET, and it's a very early version of internet. And that point of time, they have received a malware, 2 November kind of thing. Then once they received this particular malware, they have also faced the same challenges in some other universities as well. So what the US government came up with, that let's build something which can help you to protect these kind of malwares and the computers which are around the world, or which is going to be around the world. So what they have built is a day which is dedicated to cyber security, and they pronounce it as a computer security day. So basically, that's how the entire concept of computer security day came in play. So what we are going to discuss, and in the computer security, there are multiple aspects that we generally focus on. Today, we are going to majorly focus on the phishing attacks, and why we are focusing on the phishing attacks. So if you go through the data, 2.2 million phishing websites which has been reported since the beginning of 2020. As you know that the COVID is going on, and because of this, there are attacker which is just wanted to take the benefit of this particular time where everything is online. You try to get as many as people online because of the remote work, or people are not able to come from houses. So every communication medium or channels are going online on a majority of stuff. So that's how the attacker are trying to penetrate, be it be your attack on Zoom, be it be creating a fake landing website, pages, and etc. etc. So there are roughly around 2.02 million, which is around 20 lakh website which is being created as in phishing and is reported at the beginning of 2020. The other part is the reported crimes are very less, and Vikas has a vast knowledge on this. I'll tell you, I'll give you the intro how we are helping companies, especially in this case, and I'll also tell you that the Vikas will share the experience from the organization's perspective, that how they protect their organization or the organization which is across the world. 95% of the attack and enterprise caused by a spear phishing campaign. We'll go on a dig down what is spear phishing, but let's just understand what is basically a phishing. A phishing website is a clone of a particular website which is created to actually harvest credential of a user. So when I say harvest means, let's say I can create a fake page of a Facebook, send it to you via SMS, via email, via chat box, or any other medium that you can think of. So because of that, the people when the people created this kind of phishing, they put up a ID password. This goes to directly to the hacker, and that's how the hacker gets the credential and use that credential again to actually infiltrate into the organization. Spear phishing is a part of phishing. We'll discuss this on a later part when we'll discuss the entire stuff today. There is a 600% raise in COVID-19 phishing related sites. So when you generally try to get the information like how many patients are there, how the market is shaping, there are certain. So if you go to any website, every other website has a COVID-19 related information, and that's how the people are trying to build a similar kind of pages, and that has risen by 600% within a Q1 of 2020. And that's why our today's focus, especially on a very vast or very important element of cybersecurity, which is a phishing, and that's why will focus on this particular thing. So and that's how we have put it our point of focus is area for today's call. Now what I'll do is I'll jump into my speaker. I'll just introduce him for today's webinar. Let me just. So we have with us Mr. Vikas Yadav. He's a CISO for Nykaa currently. He worked with multiple organizations previously, and I know him from a long time. He's a continuous speaker on a multiple forums He have been into industry for 18 years. He did his MTech in computer science from IIT Kharagpur. His experience not only comes with the cybersecurity, but he has a vast experience in project management, privacy, security operations, cloud security, governance, risk, and compliances. And let me tell you, he's the right guy for today's seminar because he's the guy who's a early vocal for security awareness. He's the guy who promote, I'll say, security awareness on a multiple forums, and he's the guy who actually motivates the people towards how things are going to be bad in a near future from these kind of attacks. So please welcome Mr. Vikas Yadav from Nykaa. Hi, sir. Hi, sir. You are mute, sir.
Okay. Hi, Pawan. Thanks a lot for the lovely introduction. I think all of us contribute equally to cybersecurity awareness. And I think cybersecurity awareness today is one of the most important and critical aspects of cybersecurity. So I believe that every person, right down from each vendor, each employee, each participant of this webinar, and all people in any organization are equally important in the cybersecurity role. And therefore, awareness about latest threats, about cybersecurity aspects is essential and very important. And I think that should be the number one priority of every organization, to make have a good cybersecurity culture within the organization, and that is built by regular awareness and training on cybersecurity aspects.
Correct, sir. So there are a couple of things that for our viewers or the people who joined this particular webinar. So 2020 has been a wake-up call for cybersecurity experts across the globe. And what's your view on this? Because of this recent COVID scenario, the work from home culture, and there are a couple of things which are going on board, and you must have faced a lot of challenges. Your colleagues was telling a lot of things, and you must have been studying these things very closely. So what do you feel about this 2020? Like, do you feel this is a wake-up call, or there are more stuff has to come in future?
I think 2020 has seen a paradigm shift in how cybersecurity is viewed, and how we companies are viewing and protecting their employees from cybersecurity. In fact, since last 10 years, there has been a shift towards various new technologies such as cloud and IoT, and that has already blurred the perimeter. If you remember earlier, in let's say 5 to 10 years back, your security was concentrated within your own company. That is when your employees used to come inside a secure environment. They used to work within that. They used to access the applications which were working within this environment. The access to internet was very restricted. But then when we started deploying applications on the cloud, we started having internet enabled devices, the perimeter started blurring. And I think this year saw the complete shift, because all those companies which were comfortable with working in this perimeter based concept also had to change. And initially, I think a lot of us resisted this change, wherein we said that we will not work. The organization said that we will not outsource our work to various companies or to clients. But slowly and slowly, people realize that you cannot change the environment. You have to adapt with the environment, and then that means you start seeing lots and lots of employees working from home. You started seeing people accessing corporate applications from the home. The concept of VPN is blurring now. How many people can you get on the VPN? So therefore, when you have people accessing internet, you have lesser number of controls. How do you save yourself from that? So I'll say the pandemic has not only shifted the paradigm, it's also transformed the whole way computing is being dealt with. Now you have any and every company employee working from home. Even if since the lockdown is lifted, you still have people working for at least a period of time, or for some duration when they're working outside. And these environments are becoming the new normal, as I'll say. And in this new normal, cybersecurity's role becomes increasingly important, primarily because first, the employee or your user has moved out of your traditional perimeter. He's accessing applications directly. he is vulnerable both to various cyber threats which were online, and now also to the environment where he's working from home, where his Wi-Fi may or may not be secure. So I think these are the few aspects where we have seen a change. Cloud and IoT brought the first level of change. Pandemic moved the employee from the instant corporate environment out to the his home, or to a different, let's say, work from home, vacation from home, and then now we need to do a lot differently to change and protect this environment.
Correct. So you correctly mentioned, and I know for the fact that the government of India also allowed some. There are some restrictions on accessing the internet from outside, and there's a restriction for every BPO to have a static IP. There's a lot of things, and that has also been changed by government of India to make sure that the people has a working from home culture. What do you feel this work from home culture comes with? What kind of security challenges?
See, I think first, work from home environment ensures that you employees keep working. So I think as security employees and security evangelists or security, let's say, owners, we have to stop being, let's say, Doctor No, that means NO, to Doctor No, that means you need to know things. So now you know that this is a change which is happening. So when you know this change, what can you do to protect? So now when we say work from home, firstly, it's a reality. I think all employees will continue working from home. The new age cloud native companies were already working there. Now you have traditional companies like manufacturing, regulated companies like BFSI, and those companies also have started moving out. So you nowadays no longer the employee can be restricted to within the confines of the working environment of corporate offices. So work from home is a reality. So now what changes? Firstly, what changes is that your employees have access to applications directly. Certain applications which you have not routed through your corporate environment get routed directly. They have access to that directly. Their access to internet is through their work Wi-Fi or internet at home, maybe through a mobile hotspot or a Wi-Fi. Now there is no guarantee that you are not in control of these two devices.
Correct.
When you're not in control of these two devices, that is your Wi-Fi and your hotspot, you have to start thinking a little differently, and you have to ensure that both the application and the endpoint is protected in a different manner. So a lot of people talk about nowadays about zero trust architecture. So now those are the paradigm shifts which are occurring, and your work from home environment also means that your endpoint needs to be protected in a much better manner. There is no guarantee you have that your endpoints will be updated. That means, is your laptop and will be updated with the same frequency which you could do within your corporate environment. So if the person is not connecting to your corporate environment at all, and I will say that with surety that I think majority, more than 50% companies, employees would not be connecting, all employees will not be connecting back to the VPN and back to the corporate environment. So you have a different threat environment. What I'm saying is that it's not that it's more scary or less scary, it's a different environment. Let's say when you start working from one country to another, it's a cultural change. So I think this is also a cultural change, in wherein the employees are working from home, and cybersecurity professionals have to realize that this is a change which has occurred, and now they have to adapt to this change and provide both solutions in terms of people, process, and technology to fit in this new environment, new normal.
Understand, sir. So keeping that in mind, what's your take? So let's define these attacks. So one is, like you mentioned, the endpoints has to be protected from a vast variety of attacks. Now when we think about endpoints, I think we also think about the people as in whole, as in security. Like you mentioned, people, process, and security, people, process, and technology. So one is the technology. Now my next question is on a people part. What your take on the massive surge in phishing attacks in 2020? Because people, what I've seen so far in multiple forums, and as well as the data says, the people is the weakest link in organization, and we need humans to identify the attacks, and that's where the phishing attacks comes in. So, what's your take on massive surge in these phishing attacks in 2020, especially these COVID times?
So I think phishing always used to be one of the prime vectors. In fact, 95% of threats and attacks which come to any organization are through the email vector. Correct. So email has been and will remain the important vector. 2020 has seen, I'll say, increased focus on this, because now when you have people sitting at home, maybe some people without jobs, some people without opportunities, some people with lack of health information. Earlier, they could move around and seek information. They could go to their neighbor, they could go to their doctor, they could go to their mentor, to the counselor. And now majority of the people have started looking for this information online, be it through their laptops, be it through the mobiles, be it through other devices. So as people look for more and more information, most cyber attackers have started using the email as a major vector towards, and that phishing is the vector which used to phish employees. That means you're going to send them an email which triggers them to do an action which can be harmful for them. It could be giving credentials away. It could be downloading software which is not you're not authorized to do so, or which will be harmful to your computer. You need to. These are the various vectors which we can come through the phishing. So obviously, phishing is always already there, but it's increased drastically. Now the cyber threats have become more focused because you have a sense of fear or a sense of urgency within a particular employee or a person, and when he sees a kind of a link, let's say the kind of urgency is exhibited in a mail which says that, okay, fine, we're going to give you this wonderful new solution which will solve corona, and or we'll give you this, your employee has your employee has just suddenly cut your salaries, or there's no bonus, or a small maybe hidden file which says that, oh, this is your latest joining bonus, when the company is already declared that there's not going to be a bonus this year. So I think the eagerness and urgency while sitting at home 24/7 on the computer increases, and that's why employees have become more susceptible to these attacks. And I think it's with everyone. Your working hours are stretched, so you're on the edge always. And then when you receive suddenly such a pop-up, you tend to click it immediately, I think.
And I think that the people design these attacks in a sophisticated manner that they know exactly where you're going to click. So they try to lure you in those offers. And this is what we have seen so far in our case. So we have one product, which is a phishing incident response, where we have seen the data that the kind of attacks is more prevalent, like you mentioned in this question, that the people who has a bonus offer tend to go more on. And they also define the target like Diwali, your Christmas. These are the best benefit for them. Like they go on those times, send out the mailers, and they have a very, very easy access to those kind of data that they're looking for. Now, keeping that in mind, that we have a vast majority who is being exposed to phishing, or who's are being easily targeted. What do you see awareness training for every individual in practice? Do you think it could have been a better fewer security challenges in this area?
I think security awareness has always been very important. Now, the security awareness can be divided into various areas. First and foremost, that I think every employee which joins an organization should be conducted to a basic security awareness, and that's the starting point. And that initial awareness training for half an hour or 45 minutes should be where they should be introduced to the security environment of the company. What are their expectations? What are the IS policies? What do they need to take care of? I think that's the first step. If you immediately introduce an employee when he joins the organization to these security aspects, that's a first good beginning. And once you introduce the employee to this environment, and then you should have obviously mandatory annual training, which is there. But I think training without checking the impact is not useful. So obviously therein comes the useful aspect of gamification or phishing simulations. What you can do is you can run a phishing simulation campaign. You can figure out what are the kind of employees who are most susceptible to it. You can have enhanced training for them. Then you can obviously target specific departments, be it finance, HR, or marketing and customer care, who are more, I'll say, more susceptible to this, or have more critical data to work on. So this is the kind of employees which you can target initially. And then once these employees are targeted, then you can improve and focus on these specific departments. What you can also do is you can even, besides these training aspects, you can also target specific groups. Let's say IT people, because they are more focused. They need to take in a little bit of better training and more focused training on protecting devices. Then your product and marketing, who deal regularly with vendors. And I will say one of the most missed aspects is also the number of third parties and consultants which every organization has. I think very few organizations focus on them, and they do have access to both your applications and systems. And we don't. That is where you need to engage with both HR and procurement to ensure that they are trained. But I think repetitive training is also can become dull. So you really need to, I think, do a lot to change this. Bring a little bit of fun element into it. Incentivize security rather than. I think that rather than maybe, let's say, if you find that a particular employee has been phished twice, rather than trying to send him a punishment or send his name to his HOD, better is to ask him to be a security champion and forward your messages, let's say your awareness messages, to within his department at least 3 or 4 times in the coming week. Maybe that's the kind of a difference you need to make. So incentivize employees, make it a little fun, don't have monotonous briefings, and I think change the paradigm a little bit.
I think you are absolutely correct. So being in critical, we are known for our security awareness trainings, and what we have seen so far is, you correctly mentioned that there are multiple parts where these attacks are happening. Just to share the data with our audience, what we have, so I can just share the data on how things works. We work with more than 150 plus enterprises to solve this particular challenge. What we have seen so far is that when you do a first attack on those organizations, which would be a first simulated phishing attacks, there are chances of 30% people get caught in that. And these are bigger companies, like the companies who has the entire processes, the right kind of people. But the thing is, the security team is trying to engage them on every level. But still, the challenge is that when the attacks comes in as a legitimate action and the people can click on, the security people are not too much responsible for those kind of attacks. I know that they have a responsibility to put security awareness on the level, but there has to be an element by which the people should understand by themselves. And this is not, and sir, correct me if I'm wrong, this is not only for organizational changes, this is also for themselves. So I've seen people complaining, going to the police station, that there are thousands of rupees or lakhs of rupees being deducted from their account for a OTP fraud kind of thing, which is one of the leading attack vector, again, which we generally call an SMS. So it's, when we talk about security awareness is not only focused on the organization standpoint, but it's very important for individual aspect as well. Yeah. So according to user, like we have industries like healthcare, BFSI, we have insurance basically covered in the BFSI, your entertainment, your real estate. We know that the booming industry, we generally call from a financial perspective, is the healthcare currently. And healthcare has been so much on a burden right now that they have put up a lot of controls, they're trying to put up a lot of technology. But apart from healthcare, what do you feel the next industry is going to get targeted? What is your views on this?
Bhavan, I don't think you can specifically target an industry. I think conventionally, banks and financial institutions have always been targeted directly because of the sheer financial element involved in that. But we've seen, if you've seen attacks within both India and abroad, the companies have been which have been targeted have been across the spectrum. So you have seen cities in US being targeted again with ransomware. You've seen various manufacturing companies being targeted by ransomware. You've seen hospitals being targeted by ransomware. You've in fact seen specific employees being targeted with phishing and skills. I remember, in fact, reading a blog of Troy Hunt, where his grandmother was targeted with the ransomware, and she was being asked for 2 bitcoins, and in fact, she rang up Troy Hunt, who is a famous Australian blogger. In fact, if you're not following him, you should definitely do so. So she said that, who's this crazy guy who thinks I'm going to pay him some money or something? First, she didn't understand bitcoins. When she asked him, what's a bitcoin? Then he said it's some new digital currency. So she blew her top and said, why the hell do you think I am going to pay this person for my photographs 2 bitcoins? He can take them, delete them, I don't care. So I think that is the kind of shift which is there. I think what is important is that each industry needs to realize that, or industry, or not even industry, I'll say each employee or a person needs to realize that cybersecurity is a threat to every person, and and you have to be protected. Also, you have to stay ahead of the pack. So I always refer to, I wish I had the photograph I would have shown you, that wherein you see a pack of deer running away from a lion, wherein you have to be ahead of the pack. You don't necessarily need to be the top of the pack, but you need to be ahead of the pack which is there. So the low-lying fruit will always be targeted. So you need to constantly keep updating yourself. I think we've seen a lot of senior people or people in villages being targeted against this SMSing scams, where people lost a lot of money in fake ATM withdrawals and all. So even UPI, which has been built, UPI in fact has brought about such a revolution in finance in India.
Correct.
Has been targeted explicitly by fraudsters because it makes it so easy. So I think any transaction which makes it easy for transaction will also have a counter result. That is, counter result would be that the fraudsters will try to target it. So awareness is very important. So whenever you bring a new product and idea, you need to ensure that you look at those risks also. So risk-based thinking is always important while being on the ground and tackling the operational issues also simultaneously. So I would not pinpoint a particular industry. I'll say the industry thing will remain the same. What is essential is for every industry to be aware that cybersecurity threats are a reality, and they should be protected. Every industry should do its bit, and be it by engaging a security consultant, a company, or having its own in-house experts. But if you take the basic measures, I think it should be good to go.
Understand. So basically, what essentially I can conclude is that it's not specific to industry. It could be individuals, a lot of people. But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong. So, but what I am thinking of, that the people generally target where they can get the output of it. Let's say either they get money, either they get data. So they focus on those people majorly where they can get maximum benefit. These are like, so I categorize them, probably it's not a good word, but I categorize them as later newer generation thieves. So probably previously we used to have thieves like they would put your gun in your head and then get your money. But right now the people are, with the help of internet or the kind of tools which are available, a guy sitting in Pakistan or Nigeria can actually take down the entire state. So that's the kind of things which are happening. And you're absolutely correct, sir, that it cannot be tied up with a specific industry. It is for everyone. What about SMB? So we have a lot of SMBs in India. The enterprise, I think there are roughly 6,000 companies which are listed on a stock exchange, but there are millions of SMEs in India. What do you see? How are they equally at a high risk, such as enterprises? Not only from a phishing perspective, but from across broader perspective. You must have met a lot of people from IT. They do not have any guy designated for security. They have an IT guy who's managing the entire stuff. What is your take on this, sir? And also, just to for our audience, I know there are a lot of people who wanted to ask questions. We have a specified 10 minutes for audience questions, so we will take all the questions at that point of time. Yeah, sir. So your view on SMB, sir?
I think small and business enterprises are always at a risk because they don't have the resources. I think that is where it's very essential for all IT employees to be trained effectively. And that's where maybe a little bit of a cybersecurity curriculum within the IT training will always be helpful. And I think if IT companies and organizations and most of the IT departments are adequately focused, I think it's more of looking at the perspective what you look at. Sometimes the security teams are really required just to push the agenda of security. If someone is like someone owning the security. But I've also seen companies who've not had dedicated security staff, but where the DevOps and IT people are doing an extremely good job, maybe sometimes more so than the security teams, which could end up adding a lot of bureaucracy and time to the whole approval process. So as you move towards new cloud technologies and other things, security has to be integrated into the developers concept. One thing which I always educate, let's say my developers in various organizations where I have worked is that if you are to work for senior and reputed organizations, they will expect security to be ingrained. They will not expect you to write insecure code. Similarly, I think if you are an IT professional, you need to have security aspect looked into. So if the small and business people just look at 10-20% of how the IT guys looking at security, that's also a good start. Second is executive sponsorship in terms of the owner of the company acknowledging that yes, security is important, and then doing it. So then again, it's again a matter of being better than others. And also, finally, the government also has a role today to play. For example, I think India also has a Cyber Swachhta Kendra, and there's a lot of useful information available there. So if we follow the best practices and guidelines, that's a good way. And also then I think, for example, countries like UK, where they have a cyber essentials program, is a very useful measure. So I think if the owner of the small medium business enterprise is a little cyber savvy and is aware of the risks, I don't think there should be a problem in SMBs being tackling threats. But when you don't want to dedicate some resource or at least be aware about cybersecurity, then there is a challenge. And if you feel that, oh, I'm just small enough, or I'm very too small to be targeted, and as I even shared you the example of that Roy Hunt's granny, I think anyone and everyone can be targeted, right from a cybersecurity professional like you and me to a CEO of a big company, and also to a simple small SMB being, or a sweet shop being in a small corner of India. As long as he's on internet and he has got systems, and I think most of us are nowadays, you are a target for the cyber threats.
So I've recently seen a news, a big antivirus company is also being targeted for cyber threats. They are claiming that there's some portion of it is only being targeted, but I cannot name them. But yeah, so it's like you correctly mentioned, you and I also can be targeted. The only thing that that can protect us to be aware, be cyber vigilant, and put up proper controls towards the security.
Yeah. In this aspect, I'll just share something very relevant. Like we were discussing today internally, what are the backups? Why are backups important? So I was saying that maybe a thing as simple as backups could be such a good protection against ransomware.
Correct.
So even for your personal systems, how many of us, if let's say all of us if you asked a survey at the end of this webinar as to how many of us take a backup of our personal systems, so if we took that, and if wouldn't be surprised if you didn't cross the 70 or 80% mark. So those 30 or 40 or 50% of people who are not backing themselves up and get subjected to a 0-day or some attack which maybe their computer or their antivirus is not protecting against, what is their protection? But a simple thing like a backup once in a month can effectively protect them. But how many SMBs are doing these simple exercises? So I think everyone is a target. It is just a matter of how well you're protected and what basic steps you're taking. You don't need to have the best software installed. I think there's one company who lost almost 4 years of data when they refused to pay ransomware because I think they never backed up. I'm not even talking about a monthly backup. I'm talking about an annual backup. Annual offline backup, both of our personal and professional systems, is a good start to protecting against one of the most critical threats, that is ransomware, which we are facing.
Understand. And I think you correctly mentioned, I've never thought on the SMB line that the people actually can. So the other part is in backup also. We can go on a long discussion because the backup also, where you're protecting the backup, it should be offline, kind of offline or a separate, protected on some other system, because those backups, I've seen these things, and there's one more company that we have interacted with, which was attacked by ransomware, that the backup also got encrypted, and that become a challenge. So the backup should not be stored on the same server where you're actually using it for a day-to-day usage. So that's my take on this. So one important part is so let's break this ice. And there's I know we have a lot of participants in this particular call. These are the companies, people from the companies who are the security analysts and the people like this. And there are some early people who is like students or the people who are trying to jump into this cybersecurity. How do you feel that an antivirus can save people from or a human from phishing attacks? Do antivirus really plays an important role? What is your take on this?
I think yes, but you cannot pinpoint, let's say, only an antivirus. But yes, antivirus obviously will play an important part. to protect you from ransomware. But it's not the only part. I think, for example, if you're working on an administrator login and you are expecting an antivirus alone to protect you, it may not be true. So I think it's a combination of processes, combination of being security aware, not to click on links, a combination of what endpoint protection do you have on your laptop, combination of what your threats are. If you have seen big companies like the one which you mentioned earlier, a security company being subjected to a small ransomware attack. So I think every employee also needs to do that. Antivirus will play an important part because it's one of the second lines of, or let's say first line of defense after you've clicked or installed a malicious software.
Correct.
But it cannot play the only part, simply because the best of the best cannot do that. That's why you have almost 10, 15, 20 antivirus and endpoint solutions there. And if you go into the corporate environment, you have right from AV to EPP, EDR, XDR, MDR, and you name it. The acronyms have become more than the antivirus versions themselves.
And still, what we have seen. So we here in Critical Test designed few ransomwares, and you wouldn't believe, we checked it. So there is a repository. I'll share that resources with the people as well. A repository where you can just go to the virustotal.com, you upload a file and check with 65 plus odd antiviruses that is this your software safe from these, or these antivirus will detect it or not. And let me tell you, with a small smartness that you can play, and by spending roughly on 50 to 60,000 rupees, you'll get an EV code sign certificate. This code sign certificate will not, even if you click on that ransomware, it will not show you to click next. It will directly get installed and cover your screen, and no antivirus will detect it. So majorly what we have, like you correctly mentioned, you said that the awareness is important, and you have a EDR, MDR, and there's a lot of other tools that is being used to safeguard the people. But obviously this is the second line of defense to protect people from these kind of attacks. So I think the people has to be much more, so it should be a combination from a technology as well as a human awareness, which will play a very important role stopping these kind of attacks.
And I think, sorry to interrupt, but sure. I think that is at one point of your cybersecurity career, you should start evaluating relevant frameworks also. Correct. So I think though ISO has been there for a long time, but a more practical framework is the NIST cybersecurity framework. When you have things like identify what are your critical assets, then you protect those assets which you identify. We have the capability to detect the cyber attack, then also have a capability to respond and recover. I think if you go through the paradigm of identify, detect, protect, respond, and recover. So if you cover this and you dedicate your efforts equally across the spectrum of the NIST cybersecurity framework, be it your personal or be it your corporate organizational environment, then you are better protected. That means once you have the basics in place, try and think of looking for a framework for your organization wherein you look at all the parameter aspects of what all you are protecting and how are you doing it, how are you identifying what you have to protect, protecting it through suitable means, detecting it timely, detecting any attacks timely, and then finally having a capability to respond and recover. And recover is what I said, let's have the backups to recover what you may have lost, because it invariably may happen that you have a cyber attack going forward.
I think you correctly pointed out in a very efficient manner. So what I'll also do for an audience, that the things that we are discussing, like the NIST framework, the ISO 27001, or antivirus effectiveness, I'll ask my team to create a note so that it can be beneficial for them. Because NIST framework is a huge, I know that we will not be able to explain, but obviously you very efficiently characterize. I'll try to make sure that we send out the notes to those people who can understand it in a more effective way.
Yeah, or we can always have a subsequent webinar where we can talk about I think the NIST cybersecurity framework in more detail.
Correct.
With a practical example on how to implement it.
Correct, sir. Correct. And it's very important. And I also help, like, let's say the people who wanted to put these kind of controls. And you correctly mentioned that if you have a critical data, which is putting on a different server, which no one can touch on, there's a very less risk of getting into those systems than a normal endpoint. So you are absolutely right. The other part that you have put it up is this risk, identify, recover, and respond and recover. So what do you feel? What is your view about phishing incident and response? How people are doing it and how much it is important? Because I've seen the data that one phishing, and I'm not talking about the India, I'm talking about the entire world. They take to investigate one incident, which is specifically to phishing, it takes 131 odd days. It could, so it's an average. So what do you feel that how we as in India we are putting up a right controls for phishing incident response, and what is the need? Is there requirement for phishing incident response, and what are your views on this?
So I think firstly, from a phishing protection perspective, there are a lot of things which you can do. I think you first and foremost is that you need to ensure that your own domain is DMARC compliant. That is, I think it's a difficult topic to get into right now, but primarily ensure that your domain is not being spoofed. That means no one can send an email, let's say from pavan@katikal.com to any other employee katikal.com.
Correct.
That's what I think DMARC protection is the first step. Second step is to have a basic antivirus in place. I think third step would be to have phishing simulations to direct the awareness of the employees. And then having a very, very basic forensic response in terms of when some incident has happened. Or let's say a particular employee understands that, yes, this is a phishing mail. How does he communicate to the IT security employees, IT security team that, yes, I have received a phishing mail, and how do you protect it from this? So for that, I can have either an independent solution, or it can be baked into your email security solution. So your email security solutions can be like more maybe API based, wherein they sit as an email gateway, or they sit in as an API. That means they just keep looking at all the mailboxes and seeing the threats. So you have a number of numerous vendors in this, like Mimecast, Barracuda, Firepoint, FireEye, and also the API-based solutions like IronScales and others. And also have some kind of a phishing alert button for the employees to identify and tell them. And if you feel that a particular employee is intimated to you, how do you isolate that particular system from the network? It could be done through the latest EDR tools, or if you have a very highly qualified security team, you could use tools like OS Query, Google Rapid Response to further do more forensics and this thing. But obviously, for that, you need to have a evolved security team to be able to carry out that kind of stuff. Or I think I think the better way is also to think of looking at as a retainer, as a cybersecurity firm also who can do the forensics for you.
Understand. And I think so we as in Critical also worked a lot on this. We do not have an endpoint like the gateways, but what we have is threat alert button, like you mentioned, the phishing reporting button. So what you can do so far is in a Gmail itself or Outlook, you will get a button where you click on that particular thing. It is being investigated on a back end, and then the correct information is being passed to the security team, which they are looking at. And then you can take a precautionary step within a one click of yours. The entire, let's say there are 50 people who receive that email, the email will be wiped out from their inboxes, so that you are protected from this kind of attacks. So I think that's a very important thing. Like you mentioned, a couple of tools. We try to again put on a structured way and give it to the people so that they can actually go and further study on those things, apart from the other stuff that we discussed. Now I think we have left around 8 to 9 minutes. Let's open this discussion to all the participant. The first question that I have from one guy is, suppose if we click on the link that's probably phishing, what we can do after that, like at that time, like I clicked on that link, but what are the next section that I should take on? So what he is trying to mention is that if the attack is happened or he received an email and he clicked on, what are the next steps he should take on? Sir, you're mute. So you're mute. Sir, you're still mute. Hello?
Yeah. I think I would prefer you answer it because you are the cybersecurity provider. We should give an answer for this solution. Then maybe I can add on from my perspective.
So what I recommend is it totally depends on where you're clicking. If you're, let's say, clicking on an email, if there's a file which gets downloaded, so you need to identify what kind of attack it is. So if it's an attack which is exe or Excel or any other file which is get downloaded via clicking on that link, then you have suffered a loss. You should try to I'll say extract that file, check into the antivirus, and see how things works out. generally what happens so far is that the system try to actually encrypt your data as soon as possible. If you wanted to, so one is you identify the risk, then you respond. So let's say if this file is, so there's a, if you click on that file, there's an exe file. Just click on, right click on this, open a task manager, see if there's a process which is running so far for that particular exe file, kill that task, take a backup, and then start using your system. If it's a phishing link, if you've submitted your credential, do change it. And the very important part that you should take care of is that the credential that you submitted should be a credential which is this credential used at a multiple places? Because what we have seen so far, the people are using same credential on a multiple website. That means, let's say if guy hacks on a one system, they can hack on a multiple system, and there are tools which are available. There are tools which can log in on thousands of websites by just putting up your email ID and passwords. So that's what you should do. The other part is try to identify from where you received a mail, spam that blocker, and report it as a spam, because the Google at the back end takes up precautionary measures that the guy will not be able to send emails to other people. Over to you, sir.
I think you covered most of the aspects. I'll just say that having an effective response mechanism after being able to inform your the IT team is the most important thing. The first and foremost, that if anyone clicks on a link, having the knowledge that yes, I have an IT security team in place, and I need to inform them. I think you can just inform them. From a cybersecurity professional perspective, what you could do immediately is to do an analysis of that system and make sure that it does not have any processes run, and try and isolate it from the network. And then you can run various antivirus or other forensic scans to detect if there is any malicious software which has been infected.
Correct.
And if you are still not sure, you can always then maybe take a disk image and get it checked out from a forensic expert, and once he's given his confirmation, reformat it. But the first and foremost is to intimate your IT security team, even if you don't see any suspicious activity. Still, it's better to inform and be wary rather than make a mistake about it and not inform.
Correct, sir. And there are a lot of questions. So what I'll do is I'll give an opportunity to the people directly ask questions. So Ravi, I think over to you. You can unmute yourself and ask question. Hey Ravi. Let me just ask. He has written in the chat.
I read it. I read his question. Ravi, a very interesting question. I think that's what's affecting it. But first, primarily, it's not a very major threat. It is happening in very extremely rare cases. But what simple thing which you could do is to ensure that your phone is not out of sight. Most of the SIM cloning activities are carried out once the person has an access to your phone or your SIM. So if you do not give access to your phone or SIM, or do not share the IMEI or IMC numbers, which are the details about the phone or about the SIM, then I don't think SIM cloning is easy to do. If someone does have access to your phone, yes, then if there are chances of getting it done. However, I think telecom authorities have woken up to this, and there are a lot of activities they're doing to ensure that such activities do not take place. But yes, SIM cloning is a threat and will always remain so. It was right from the days of 2G or GSM, the times that SIM cloning used to happen. And in fact, lawful interception, that means interception of mobile phones, was initially carried out using technologies like SIM cloning only, where they had almost 8 SIMs in a interception engine, and then you could clone any of the SIMs and then run that. And that moved on to technologies where you could intercept it at the BTS tower itself. But it's a different topic in itself, so I'll not get into it. I've done a lot of work in that area. But I think
there's yes, sir. There's one more question from Aman. It is privately on chat, and it's a very good question. In a recent times, I read a BBC blog about how robots are taking over the people's job. So, sir, what do you think about robots? Can they replace a cybersecurity man or a hacker? According to a study by researcher from at Oxford University and Deloitte, its chances is 15%. So, what's your take on this?
My simple take on is there are enough jobs for good people, so you should stop worrying about it. That's a short answer. The long answer is that robots and automated or applications will always be there to make your applications or your jobs easy. They will transform and disrupt industries. In fact, there's a word for it after Uber, which is called Uberization. That means the whole industry can be disrupted by the entry of a new player, like Uber did for taxis.
Correct.
Airbnb had done for the travel industry. So I think you'll always see this disruption occurring. But at an individual level, I don't think you need to worry about it. If you're good and you are skilled, there is no dearth of jobs, at least in cybersecurity. I can assure you that.
There is one more insight that I can share. I studied biotechnology, by the way, so I have a basic insight on that as well. So if you talk about a chip that we have, which has roughly around 1 million binary systems, 0, 1, by which it takes decisions. In a human brain, we have a 2 billions of neuron systems, which is again 0 and 1. In a chip, let's say 10 years down the line, this chip is going to be very small. So they will have a 10 million, and next 20 years down the line, they will have a 1 billion. So the computer will be smarter than the people. The computer will write the code. But to make sure that the computer writes the code in a skillful manner and it does not actually put up a harmless thing or a harmful thing so far, we need cybersecurity professionals. There are people who has to make sure that this is not going out of sight, and that's how the people will be required. And these are people who is going to brain those computers. So people, it's like it's not a job, like you said, sir. There's a lot of job for skillful people. The robots are not going to take job. It happened previously as well. Like when the computers came in, the people started saying the computer will take the job. But we are here. So the people, humans, intelligence is a different thing altogether. So yeah, so I'll just rest my case over there. Now we'll take one last question, and it's a very important question, sir. Again, everyone, and this is from Mansoor Ami, everyone switching to the open source systems, operating systems. What are your views on it? And it's a very, very good question.
I think, Mansoor, open source is a very viable alternative, and in fact, you see that a lot of corporations also use open source in a big way, right from Nginx web servers to Apache web servers, and a lot of new technologies are still running on open source softwares. I think the open source and proprietary softwares will keep running concurrently together. And there will always be a need for open source. Question is, will people completely switch to open source? I don't think that will happen because you need a little bit of a technical know-how and not know-how, but a little technical bent of mind to be tinkering with things to adopt. But try and imagine a use that when you buy your own phone, how many of us expect it to install our own mobile OS on it? So people, let's say your grandmother, my grandmother, my mother, for example, would prefer to just have a ready-made device which she pays for it and it goes. So similarly, you'll always have people who want a ready-made service available to you. So for them, either Microsoft's OS or Android or Apple iOS will continue to provide. For technology people, yes, there'll always be new innovative ways. You have seen the rise of things like Raspberry Pi or the Apache web servers or all the backend technology for web servers. In fact, the new latest databases which are there. But for people who don't have the time and who want a ready-made product, proprietary products will always be there to stay. I think this is going to be a healthy mix. And the question should not be whether everyone's switching to open source. I think the ideal question would be that how can you harness the open? I've always been stressing one thing which you should do is if you are a cybersecurity or any other professional, there are huge opportunities to contribute to open source. India has lagged behind a lot. In fact, way back in 90s, there used to be an open source magazine also, which used to be launched. I don't remember the exact name, but open source technologies, or it used to be launched. There's used to have a lot of talk on Linux and other operating systems. They used to have articles every week on adopting open source technologies. So do think of picking up an open source project, contributing in it. It could be by writing code, it could be by writing documentation, it could be by deploying it and telling other people how to use that open source software. The various small and business enterprises which cannot afford we cannot afford to have big proprietary products will always use open source products. I'll give you specific examples of which ones I have adopted. I have implemented Moodle. Moodle is an open source LMS in a very big way when I was in defense. We had running a large number of softwares on it. So Moodle LMS is one example which I can give you. Then you have the open source ELK stack, that is Elastic, Logstash, and Kibana, which is still used for monitoring and log monitoring and log reviewing by lots and lots of companies, including ours. So I think there's a lot of open source products. Question would be, which one should you use, which one should you pick up? So, and I think the entire cybersecurity stack is filled up of open source products, right from Kali Linux to you name it, Security Onion, and the huge ones of them. My question is, ask which one are the best one from Kritikal, pick up to them and learn them. And in fact, I can give some ideas to Kritikal to maybe launch a free course on harnessing open source technologies for security also.
Definitely, sir. So we already have, if you go to NPM, you will find some of the things on a DMARC, which is being open source from us. We are trying to put up some of the technologies, which is our engine, which is a highly scalable engine on a phishing things, probably on open source sites. So we'll come up with some of the open source tools as well. So,
and just a point, even a company like Facebook has an open source security tool called OS Query.
Yeah.
So OS Query is one of the very good tools for remote forensics and reconnaissance. Not reconnaissance, or remote, I'll say investigations and forensics for endpoint systems. And it's been launched by a company which is branded very, very closed, like Facebook. Do read about OS Query, you will find a fantastic version. It's a fantastic tool to use.
So there are other couple of questions, I think, for everyone as well as in my private chat. But I'll rest this over here. I'll just, what I'll do is I'll just send out this question to Vikas sir, and possibly see once his answer is, we'll mail it to you guys in an efficient manner. And thank you so much everyone for joining the call, and thank you so much Vikas sir for your time. I think everyone has loved it. I can see the comments in the chat section itself. I will just try to get feedback. Obviously, share an email, but you can type in the chat box itself as well. Again, thank you so much. And if you wanted to learn about things like phishing, DMARC, or a phishing incident response, or probably on anything on a people security awareness or a people site, do visit kritikal.com. You'll get a tons of things. There is already quiz which is going on where you can try to see that what kind of awareness that you have from a security standpoint. So there's a COVID-19 specific quiz we launched when the COVID came in. So just do check out those things. And if you have any question, directly reach out to us. I think we have mailed everyone from one email ID. You have our email IDs. Do reach out to us. We'll get those questions answered from Vikas sir. So again,
thank you very much, Pavan. And it was a great interacting with every one of you here. And anyone wants to connect, he can reach out to me by typing my name on LinkedIn, or you can simply send me a mail. My email ID is very simple: Vikas Singh Yadav, that's my name, @gmail.com. So do reach out, and more than willing to help, mentor, or guide anyone for any help is required. Thanks a lot, Pavan.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for the session.